Hi, and welcome to our confirmation class family devotions. Today we're going to be talking about the ninth and 10th commandments. And you can look in the catechism about what those commandments are, but today we're really going to be diving deep into what does it mean to covet. The ninth and 10th commandments are rather unique, and the 10 commandments, particularly the commandments 4 and onward to 8, because we can see rather clearly commandments 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 that they deal with something that only bad people do. I mean, we all do some things like that, dishonoring our parents or authorities on certain levels. But really, to be honest, a lot of times we're like, okay, I'm not that bad. I don't always steal. I don't murder people. I don't do these things. And so we think we're kind of in the clear when we look at the 10 commandments. But then we get to the 9th and 10th commandment. And that's really when God really kind of hammers us with what those mean and discusses that we shouldn't covet things. We shouldn't covet our neighbor's house and home, and then our neighbor's wife, maidservant, manservant, ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to our neighbor. And a lot of times when we read those commandments, we kind of have a hard time with the archaic language, maybe like ox or donkey, and we're like, oh, really? What does that mean? But it really, at the heart of these two commandments is about the word coveting. Covet is basically to desire something. Now, our desires are not necessarily a bad or evil thing, but when we covet something, we want something that belongs to someone else. So, for example, in the 9th commandment, it's talking about our possessions and our neighbor's property. The 10th commandment really talks about our neighbor's relationships. So when we think about coveting, wanting our neighbors, something that actually belongs to our neighbor, we think about it in maybe terms of, your neighbor just gets the new Xbox and you're really excited. You want an Xbox too, but it's not enough just to get an Xbox. You don't want any old Xbox. You want your neighbor's Xbox. So think about it it's not just wanting an Xbox, it's wanting your neighbor's Xbox. Not just wanting in terms of relationships. It's not just wanting to have a girlfriend or boyfriend, which is perfectly healthy. All of us would like to have a wonderful spouse and desire to have a spouse. But when you seek someone else's boyfriend or girlfriend, or maybe you seek someone else's spouse, someone who's already married, and then you begin to try to pursue that relationship, that's coveting. You're desiring something that is beyond your reach, someone or something that really doesn't belong to you. So it's not a bad thing to have desires. After all, many of you desire to be married one day and to have a good and healthy relationship with your spouse. But it's different when you begin to desire someone else's. So what happens here is when you begin to covet someone else's item or possession or even a relationship, you begin to start walking that thin line of breaking the rest of the commandments because, maybe you hear that things aren't going so well with this boyfriend and girlfriend or whatnot. And I'm going to take it really to the next level because, let's just be honest, boyfriend, girlfriend, those things are kind of nebulous and interchangeable many times because you may have several boyfriends, several girlfriends, and like. But when we get to, in terms of spouse, ball game changes here. These people have been committed to be married to each other for life, and maybe you desire this one spouse of your friends, and you hear that things aren't going so well. So what happens is that out of your covetous desire for that person in particular, you begin to maybe not really encourage, your friend to remain faithful in their relationship, or you kind of drop things like, oh yeah, maybe you shouldn't stay with that guy, because he's kind of, your husband's kind of a bum. He's kind of, and you start kind of sneaking in, whether they're true or not. Again, kind of tying back to the 8th commandment, you begin to sneak in these little remarks or kind of encouraging the person that you desire to be with to break up that relationship. And so no longer are you actually looking out for your neighbor, you're actually destroying the relationship and furthering it to be destroyed so that you would be in a relationship with that person. Now that's relationships. The same thing happens in possessions, particularly like house and home. This is where we come up with a lot of legal structures that actually are, you can legally do these things, and yet it still is breaking the 9th and 10th commandment because you're desiring something that doesn't belong to you, and you're using the legal avenues at your disposal to help you obtain those items. And so this is where people would call that business savvy, but really at the heart of it, it's covetousness. And at the heart of being coveting other people and other possessions, it's really ultimately a desire that you actually believe that God will not support you and provide for the things that you need. And so, in a sense, coveting something else really shows our own idolatry that lies within our hearts and the danger that lies in, because when we begin to covet something, it becomes so much easier to break all the rest of the commandments. So instead, let's look at our desires in a positive way. How do I want to have a spouse? What am I looking for in a spouse? God's going to give us plenty of options out there. And then what do we want for house and home, property, and even careers and jobs? How do we pursue those things in a healthy manner, in a way that is God-pleasing and God-honoring? And that's the challenge that you're going to face, and all of us face, throughout our lives, and to trust in His promises and what God actually provides for us. I hope you enjoy the rest of your discussion.
Hi, this is Moxie. Say hi, Moxie. Hi.